This is Tiffany Rosier, the host of the Afros and Knives podcast. We use the Anchor podcasting app to create and distribute the show. Creating a podcast on Anchor is effortless. It allows you to record a high-quality podcast and distribute it everywhere, including Google Podcast and Apple Podcast. They distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. No fancy equipment or podcasting experience is necessary, and it's 100% free. As long as you have a story to tell, Anchor is the platform to use. Share your story through audio using the Anchor app for Android, iPhone, or your desktop. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. The Afros and Knives podcast series is 100% listener supported. We love our community of listeners. To continue to see this podcast grow, it needs your financial support. We want to add a video series and continue to shine a spotlight on all that is brilliant and Black all over the world. Consider making a pledge or becoming a patron of Afros and Knives content today. Your generosity is deeply appreciated and is rewarded with early access to new episodes, limited edition products, and behind-the-scenes access to our production process. Visit www.afrosandknives.com to make a pledge of financial support today, and thank you. Welcome to this week's episode of the Afros and Knives podcast. I am your host, Chef Tiffany, and this week's conversation is with certified wine and bourbon expert and founder of Bubbles and Bourbon, Marcia McColl. We talk about her top picks, her upcoming events, and the future of Bubbles and Bourbon.
Hello. So it's your girl, Marcia McColl here with Bubbles and Bourbon. And I just want to tell you about myself and my journey and what's going on right now. So you might wonder, how did you get the name Bubbles and Bourbon? Well, here it is. I was studying for the Master Somm course and I got a little overwhelmed. So, acquaintances of mine, that's it. Why don't you just focus on your favorite, which is hence Bubbles and Bourbon. And the name just kind of stuck and we ran on from there. So I started taking classes about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I noticed that there weren't a lot of people around that looked like me. So I was like, what do I need to do, to educate our community of African Americans that we need to drink more wine other than Moscato, Hennessy, the things rappers that are in like pop culture, hip hop culture, music, things like that. And Alizé, whatever, like name brand things. It's like, so that's how I was like, okay, well, let me do events. And that's when I started doing my events and tasting tutorials. And my next one is actually coming up July 21st. It's going to be in the Shaw Howard University area at the Shea. It's called Bubbles, Bourbon, and Burgers. Tickets are on sale right now for $40. And you will get sliders that I'm handcrafted and made myself. Well, I didn't make the meat, but anyways, you'll get your burgers. I'm going to make up some drinks for you guys and you'll get to try my specialty cocktails. But I'm happy to be here, ready to get started. Any questions you have, ask away.
All right. Well, thank you. So have you been in wine or beverage all your life? Have you been in food at any point and you just kind of made a transition? What were you doing before this kind of grabbed a hold of you and you decided to kind of pursue it full time, seriously? Because some people are out here, they just straight up being hobbyists at this point. So when was that kind of transition for you to go from, I like the taste, I love wine to, it's time to get serious and really create a platform for myself?
So I turned my passion into my career. I was in restaurants for at least 8 to 10 years. I mean, I started from the stepping stone from like hosting to serving, bartending, management. And that's where it became a requirement for like the managers when I was working on Capitol Hill to be more knowledgeable in wine. So I started taking classes at Capitol Wine School. And, that's when I just got hit by the wine bug, as they say. I was a soil nerd. So for some reason, the soils and the mineralities, that's what like really got to me and how it can affect the taste of wine, just the whole winemaking, growing process of it all. And, maybe after leaving Capitol Hill, after our president we have now, it wasn't as welcoming in that area for me, being a young African American woman. So I went on to U Street and became a general manager. And that's when I was just like, you know what? The restaurant industry, it's like exhausting. I want to do what I love, and I don't want to be like drawn out every day because I'm in a restaurant, like working my butt off 10 hours a day, no shifts. I mean, no breaks from your shifts. And I was like, okay, so I know a lot about wine. I started getting my certifications. I also became bourbon certified too. And I kind of just focused solely on wine for the last about 2 years. It's just been wine classes, tutorials, events. I've been instructing as well. I did a game night at Capitol Wine School. I have another one coming up very soon in the next season. So yeah, I'm just basically wine and spirits. Breathe in, breathe out. That's my passion. That's what I do.
So what was your, because working, of course, in restaurants, I think wine is a bit more of a natural space to fall into. Was bourbon just something you love to drink in your personal time? Was it something you used to recommend or suggest to diners? Was it just a kind of like, hey, I love collecting bourbons and, I love drinking them. And this is what I do with my own personal time, my own personal taste.
Well, I love bourbon, but bourbon is expensive. Let's just get that out the way. I kind of drink depending on the season for the most part, because I'm like, okay, if it's summertime, I want some tequila and rum. For wintertime, I want to have bourbon in my hot toddy or, some type of whiskey. But I also noticed that there's a Black Bourbon Society. And, like I said, I did some research. I was like, there's not a lot of people in different communities for African Americans where we can educate each other about different spirits. And that's how I got into bourbon, because I was like, it's the name stuck, Bubbles and Bourbon. Like once I just kept saying it over and over again, it just hit. And I was like, okay, I can make a platform from this. I can build my brand just based on my favorite things. Because I have a really bubbly personality, but I can have that hardness of the bourbon that you'll get too.
Got you. Okay, so with your entry into both worlds, did you kind of discover that we're out here, we're just not, no one's paying attention, or did you really go, okay, wait a minute, my suspicions were confirmed. There's not nearly as many brown people out here participating in these conversations?
When I first started my page, I was a little leery in really revealing who I was. Like I do know some African Americans that are in wine. They just take pictures of wine and food. And a girlfriend of mine was like, you should show your face, show who you are. And that's when I got noticed from Sab Jackson, and she introduced me to the Black Wine Lovers group, and where she also made an article in 2017 for the top 40 under 40 African American tastemakers. And I was featured in that article as, a WSET wine consultant. And that's when it kind of opened up. And I met the 40 people there, because it started with our Black version of the Wine Enthusiast magazine. It wasn't until last year where we actually was able to get featured. Like Derek Westbrook is on the front of the cover. I'm just like, yes, we need to be on this top 40 under 40 Wine Enthusiast magazine. And, a couple of months later, in 2018 at this point, they had the Black Symposium in Richmond, Virginia. And it was like a community of us. And that's where I met a lot of people there. I met Larry Boone. I actually met, a little bit before that, I met Regine Brazil of Shall We Wine, and Tawani Price. And it was just really good to meet everyone in person.
And the when it's funny because you were bringing up the wine enthusiasts, I was just about to ask about just media and media coverage in general for Black people, for Black influencers who work in wine and spirits professionally, and those who are out here working hard to get their certifications, and they are extremely knowledgeable. And what is your take on how media covers our participation in these spaces?
Well, I mean, Essence Festival right now is hot. Everybody is doing their platform. I mean, Sip and Share Wine is there. Tahiri's there. It's like Swirl Seat Lounge. Podcasts are there. So it's like they kind of paved the way and started giving us a voice. And that's why, I feel like wine is also kicking a little bit, so maybe we could edit this out. I feel like I'm rambling. But,
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
But, our media, we are our media, the Black community. It's not going to be featured in all the mags, like Psalm Journal. We're not going to be on the cover of that just yet. But Wine Enthusiast, it was a stepping stone. And then we had the Psalm movie, where, gosh, I can see his face, but I can't think of his name right now, where he's there and he's representing for us as an African-American Psalm.
Is it worth an effort by, African-American media companies and publishing houses and things like that to develop publications for us?
I think we need commercials. We need our own TV show. We need our own magazine. Because we're all kind of, you're not exactly doing the same thing, but everyone has their own special expertise in it.
Right.
And I kind of feel like I'm the youngest one in it a little bit. And but the ones that are pioneers, no age shame or anything, but everyone's getting up to their 40s or mid 40s. But I am only almost approaching 30. Okay. So I want to get out there too for the younger millennials.
Right. Now, have you noticed what's been the most effective platform for you to educate and engage, that particular demographic in this conversation? What have you noticed is the hardest thing to overcome when you're introducing this information and these new tastes to people who might not have grown up with them?
I've done a lot of promos outside of different wine and spirit stores or liquor stores, if you will. Some of us, they're so, not forthcoming to trying new things. They're not open-minded. So, for example, I might do something with Maker's Mark, and they're like, oh, no, I had a bad experience with them. There was another brand I did with Jim Beam, and, someone's like, oh, that's just for... I don't know if I can say this, but for crackers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was in awe. It's you just can't shame the brand. You have to be open to try new things. I've done Lux Bel Air, and it's kind of hard to reel us in to just have a free sample because we might have a bad past experience, or we were just drinking the cheap stuff and that's why you had a headache.
Got you. Now, I know in a previous conversation, we covered just kind of the history of African Americans in wine and in whiskey production and liquor production. And of course, people are just now starting to discover that brands like Jim Beam and Maker's Mark and what's the other one, girl? Help my life. What's the
I did not pre
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels is that a lot of the recipes and methods that those brands were built on were, from the minds of enslaved people and from the work that they did themselves. And so, the current founders and owners and CEOs are starting to kind of uncover that history and really start to take a little bit more pride in the fact that the people people who created the foundation for these brands are Black, and they came from other places. And so for me, the fact that enslaved people came to this country with that knowledge, it tells me that the places they came from were already creating these things and were consuming them. And so to see more African American wine brand or African wine brands and African whiskey brands and things like that, what has been your effort to kind of educate people on, kind of the origins of these things? And because coming here, you can go into a Black home, into a Black household, and it's just not something that's often very common in Black households. It's like, a lot of my friends grew up with wine, whether it was wine at communion or wine during dinner or wine at their family's houses. It was just there, and it wasn't like a strange thing. But to walk into a Black household, you don't see that. You don't see a wine cellar, and you don't see a selection anywhere. And so, what's your
Sutter home? We love Sutter home sweetbread.
Right. So I guess what's your understanding of why our history is so disconnected from that part of history in general?
I think it's our palates, and our palates need to evolve. We love sweet stuff. So we initially always gravitate towards anything sweet. We like Kool-Aid, sugar, all the sweet stuff you could get your hands on. So it's a while to try to find a platform and open up your palate to something different. Like for me, to venture into something that's not so, I guess, that sweet stuff that they love is like Malbec. I love an Argentinian Malbec. It doesn't have that much sugar in it. Like you don't taste it. You can relax and sip. And, what else is something that's like not too sweet? I do like a big bold Cabernets, but it's like we just have to open up our mind a little bit first and try our palate, because we'll have one sip and you'll taste like the bitterness of it. It's like, oh God, no, I don't want to chase this. Or it'll just make an instant face like, oh, no. So I think it just like comes with a lot of open-mindedness first. And that's how we can keep on evolving our palate. Like we do have a bourbon out there now, Uncle Nearest.
Mm-hmm.
Have that. And we have St. Cloud. That's that Black owned bourbon. But it's going to take us some time. I've definitely seen the growth within the last 3 years that I've been there. And we have more conventions and more festivals and more groups and articles that are coming up, but we still got a little way to go. We just got free 55 years ago.
And it's, there's also the relationship. I mean, there's definitely, living as a slave in the New World, wine wasn't something you had access to. It was something that was not for you. And so I think a part of that is definitely deeply seated in the culture. And so, but if you look at an Egyptian hieroglyph, you've got wine featured on the wall. And so that
it's been there.
And the origins within our people goes back quite a ways. And so the fact that was one thing that, like colonization and enslavement kind of separated us from was a lot from our palate. It separated us a lot from our food culture. And, some things that we're rediscovering right now. And that's just one of those spaces that people don't tend to associate with Black people. It's just straight up, just like fine dining. You don't have an expectation that you're going to walk into the home of your Black friend and they're going to have a really beautiful wine collection. It's just not, you know what I mean?
Wine can also be expensive too, depending on the type of varietal that you have a fan of. I think, since music is so much part of our culture, we need to get maybe some rapper or musician to rap about some Bordeaux or Burgundy wine.
I think it's like anything else, whether it's food and cuisine or wine and spirits, it's just about anything else. Like you invest in what you find important, no matter how expensive it is. Because you see people walking around with some really fantastic footwear on, but you ask them, when's the last really great meal that you had? And the last time they had a meal, it was like a bowl of ramen. And
oh my God, I can't stand gourmet ramen. Like people are like, let me chop up this and put it in here. Let me add this. I'm like, oh my God, if you don't get some regular spaghetti noodles and make it yourself.
I'm like, usually just, and for me, I'm like, if I'm going to go get ramen, I'm going to go to a Japanese restaurant. If I'm going to go to a ramen house, and I'm going to have somebody make it where, the stock has been cooking for 3 or 4 days and it's been taken care of. And
not sitting in wax.
Right. And just, someone's made those buckwheat noodles from scratch, and and I know exactly I know exactly the care and the consideration that went into that bowl, and but it's again, even with wine being, some wines being pricier than others. Like I said, we as a culture, we put our money where our mouths are. If we are excited about something and passionate about something, that's where we will spend our dollars. And I think it's really about repairing and rebuilding the relationship we have with vineyards and with wine and that history. Because if you look at the landscape of families that own vineyards across the world, I mean, there's so many layers there. That's property ownership, that's generational wealth, that's a generational skill set of somebody teaching the next generation. And that's not something that's promoted within our culture very frequently, especially in the United States with Black people. Right. And so to be able to kind of change the conversation around wine, just pass something to drink, but as something that is heritage.
Because we don't have that. Like, we just started making our own wine not too long ago, like Vision Cellars and OPP with Andre Mag. Like, it's not something that was passed down from generations.
Right. Exactly. And I mean,
so we don't have that same experience. That's like, okay, you're born into it. We weren't born into this at all.
And that's a big part of that was land ownership. I mean, that's kind of the beginning and end of that. It's just kind of like someone bought a parcel of land, hundreds of years ago, and they had to figure out how to produce something on it. And, like Africans are natural farmers. They couldn't produce anything in North America until they brought slaves over, and they figured out how to grow rice and how to, we brought these things over, and, we actually showed people how to till and how to cultivate. And that's why we have the crops that we currently have in this country. I mean, essentially, we wouldn't have a food culture in general. And so I think we'd probably be natural vineyard keepers, and we would probably be natural producers if we had the opportunities to own land, in general, and we're given given what we need in order to cultivate that. So yeah, it's definitely a conversation to have and to engage with people in. It's not just, okay, this is something to drink and you can definitely find something you love, but it's something to think about historically and why we aren't connected the way we could be. Because they're good to sell Black people some brown liquor and some cheap beer, but just the advertising, I mean, it's not even marketed to us.
Exactly.
So it's definitely a new conversation. So now for, going forward, like what do how do you want to grow your brand? What are you looking to really kind of focus in on as far as how you're connecting with your audience and what kind of value you want to add, value you want to offer them and value you want to add to them?
Right now I'm focused on finishing some of my education. Like, I'm in the WSET program, but based out of London, which is the Wine, Spirits, and Education Trust. So I am on level 3 right now, and I want to go on to diploma. So the more I get educated, the more I can keep on telling others about wine and, revealing everyone's story that's been trapped in a bottle. Because I feel like wine is stuck in a bottle. You got to figure it out, open it up, taste it, and see the journey that it's been on. So right now I'm doing some summer events. Like I said, I have a rooftop party coming up, and that's how I'm going to, do food. That's my first food and wine pairing event. And each month I try to think of something different where I can show my expertise and knowledge in wine. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and I love doing parties anyway, but I'll have a boat party coming next month in August. So, each month I do a different theme, but I feel like the people love going to tasting events. I had a scotches and squatches tasting for Father's Day. But I want to keep the theme going. I want to keep people interested and engaged in different ways you can match food and wine together, or, food and music together, food or some type of clothing and wine. So that's just how I want to be creative in that way to keep people interested in what I have to do with Bubbles and Bourbon. It's always going to be something related to, of course, sparkling wine and some type of bubbles. But, fall will be here too before you know it. So who wants to know how to make a good hot toddy? I'll let you know.
Okay. Now for the for your For your events, what's
Mhm.
the big takeaway that you want people to have from your events? What's the, like if they go and they engage and they're having a great time, like when they walk away from your events, what do you want them to kind of keep with them?
I want them to keep the experience. Like, my mission statement is this: a tasting throwaway experience. With that experience, I hope that you gain some type of knowledge in how food and wine goes together, and how you don't have to just stay in one kind of bubble of I just want to drink this. You can add maybe, like, here, my favorite kind of thing to do with wine. Did you know that if it gets warm, you can add frozen grapes to it? In order to, like, instead of doing like ice cubes in your wine, you could do frozen grapes. With my rooftop event, I'm going to have bubbles and bourbon. So I'm going to show you how to make a bourbon smash. And then you'll have like a sparkling wine sangria. So I want you to be able to take like that recipe with you, something you use at home. Just kind of like that home feeling that's like, oh, it's something that I can do on my own.
Okay. Now, do you typically use partnerships, or do you bring in like mixologists and bartenders, or people that from just in your work to come into these events and like participate and educate and just kind of create and add to that experience? Or are you still kind of in the early stages where most of that work is being done by yourself?
It's done mostly by myself, but I do have a lot of support from my friends that are also somewhat in the industry as well. I just kind of, it's better to have that support system, because I know whenever I have an event, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So, but I also like to make sure everything is run smoothly. So of course I'm there, I'm present. I might be making the drinks too at the same time, but I always have some type of backup support from someone's in the industry as well, because they know how to hands on and do the event and move it smoothly.
Now, is the brand your full-time work at this point, or are you doing something else just to kind of, fund and invest into the growth of what you're doing? And how are you incorporating all of the stuff you do outside of that into like the work you're doing on a daily basis?
So full time, I work at Capital Wine School as their tasting coordinator and instructor for certain class teams. I do bubbles and bourbon all the time. I'm always going to try to keep myself relevant and advocate for my journey. But it's part-time that I'm moving to try to, each year I'm more and more involved and more things are happening where I can consult on the side as well. I also just released my t-shirt line where it's called Wine First, Worry Later. And when I was going through all these things in restaurant management, I was like, oh my gosh, it's wine first, worry later. I just kept telling myself that. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I make this a shirt? I'm working on my wine apparel brand. There's more things that I have coming. So every quarter you'll see something new, and it's going to be like a whole store by the time I'm done at the end of the year.
Okay. For making sure I wasn't on mute. Here we go. So no problem. So for the event that's coming up, what's the flow of the event? Like, what can people expect when they come?
So summer rooftop parties in DC is a big thing. Everybody loves, and it's also on the weekend. It's also right in the heart of Howard University. You're going to come in. I have some tickets to just make sure I regulate the flow. Like, everyone's going to be able to get 4 sliders and 4 drinks. You come in, eat first if you like, or get your cocktails at the end, and you can mingle. I have lots of like couch spaces available too. You can just relax. It's from 5 to 7. We have 2 hours to mingle. And also if it goes overboard, that's fine too. But we don't have to like leave at 7. But you got to kind of put a cap at something sometimes. But it's a relaxing, socializing, millennial kind of event. Like, we love these type of events, especially in the city. And it's July. It's the summer. We gotta have fun.
Right. Have you tapped on some of like the alum and stuff like that from Howard just to kind of to partner with you, or is it one of those things where are you hosting a lot of students? Are you hosting a lot of people who just kind of live in the area? Who's your main audience?
my main audience is some of my followers and close industry friends as I have that I've made over the years. I reached out to some alums, but unfortunately they can't make it. There are other events going on that weekend as well, but it's going to be a lot of my followers that are hopefully coming out to support.
Okay. Do you is there any type of like media coverage? Do you do any type of like video? Are you like going Facebook Live or something like that so other people who don't live in the area can kind of follow the event?
If time permits, I will have a moment to go live. But I just like to facilitate things and make sure it runs smoothly first. If there's a moment where I'm just like, okay, everything's under control because I have different stations and I have different helpers, workers, that will be helping me to vent. So if there's like a time that I'm like, hey, I can go live for about 5 to 10 minutes, then I will do so. But I can't make promises just yet, but I will try my best.
Okay. What's the largest event you've done to date?
Okay, the largest event I've done. Maybe, oh, you know what? Okay, last summer I had a sparkling soiree and I had about 25 people that came, and it was unlimited sparkling wines and champagne that was served for my private collection. I think that was maybe that was the biggest one I've done yet.
Okay. And so your very first event, what did that look like?
My first event was when I debuted Bubbles and Bourbon 3 years ago now. It was like also my birthday weekend. So it's like, hey guys, this is a concept I'm coming up with. Before I like knew actual pairings and all the different sparklings and started taking all the courses, I was like, okay, well, I always do flights. So I'll always have 3 sparklings and 3 bourbons. And that was my first event. It was also at a painting store too. So we did some paintings and had some wine and bourbon. I just like kind of got some more fillers of advice of what I should do and how I should continue on.
Got you. So what's the best piece of advice you've gotten so far about like growing your business and growing your brand?
I would say never forget the why. You can get a little lost and feel kind of maybe unmotivated, just trying to keep up with all the relevance and everything that's going on. Because there's always some new wine trend, something new going on that you feel like overwhelmed, like I gotta keep going, because a lot of wine entrepreneurs, you're doing it on your own. So you could get like caught up doing your full-time life, and then, full-time job and trying to socialize with friends. But if you just take a moment and remember why you started this journey and why you're doing it, and just don't ever give up, because there's always someone in your corner rooting for you. Like, don't stop. Because I would have never thought maybe 3 years ago now that I would have such a large following and platform and doing, having a wine apparel line that I'm working on and doing events every month. Like, I'm just so happy and blessed to be able to share my experience and stories with people. So my best advice was just never forget the why. Don't forget why you started this, because I was taking those wine classes and I was like, no one in here looks like me. I need to tell us what's going on with this wine world.
Have you noticed that I guess for millennials specifically, would you say it's a bigger challenge for that particular demographic, or is it an older group that you just aren't seeing as many Black faces at events and kind of engaged?
There's definitely an increase now. Yeah. There's definitely more people out there now. Like, I've noticed more students coming into the classes now that are African American. Some are millennials, some are a little bit older. But I've definitely noticed that we are taking more, I guess, knowledge and because the classes are not cheap. Also, by the way, guys, we need some type of scholarship out here. So I have noticed that we have grown and that we are more knowledgeable and working to what we have to do to become SOMs.
Okay, and what would you attribute that change to?
I guess Black Wine Lovers Group, because that's a big community as well for us in the platform. Some
Okay.
people, I'll mention some things on there. Everyone says things. It's like an open community. Everyone's always chatting and sharing stories. So maybe that's how everyone started to get noticed and
Okay.
coming to take classes and certifications.
Do you think there's a certain level of equality now, and as far as how you're viewed? Even do you still kind of get a sense that it's kind of an exclusive club where white faces are going to always be a bit more welcome? Have you noticed that attitude hasn't really carried over into some of the newer classes of somms and wine experts and educators?
Well, when I tell the white faces, it's funny you said that. What I do, they're shocked. They don't believe it. You're bourbon certified? How did you do that? And they kind of want to do what you want to do to the same time. Like, well, I need to get one too. It's just kind of ended up being my age. They just can't believe that I'm educated in wine and I share my story. And some people found me on a website at Capital Wine School, and it's like a group of Black women who are also in law. And they're like, we specifically wanted an African American woman to host this event for us. It's just shocking and it's overwhelming, and it's like a grateful thing to be noticed.
I guess when you're having these conversations, do you think the surprise really is it coming? Do you think it's coming from color, or is it coming from maybe age, or just the fact that it's kind of like, wait a minute, there's a young person who's into bourbon or wine? Because I know, working in the kitchen as a chef, okay. So what is it that we can, as a community, start to do in order to just kind of create a more inclusive energy around wine and other spirits that people are making assumptions that we don't drink, but actually quite a few of us do?
Mm-hmm. We do like to drink. Like I said, I think we need a commercial. We need a commercial. Maybe advocating more in some of our TV shows that are out now that we drink wine, drink more Black wine. And I think that's how we can continue to grow.
So for someone who is, listening and they're interested and not necessarily becoming a professional or an educator, but they just want to learn a bit more so they feel more secure and more comfortable, whether in front of a wine list at a restaurant or picking up a bottle to take to a really great party, where do you suggest someone starts their education?
They can start their education at Capital Wine School. We have an Intro to Wine Basics class almost every other Friday. And that's where you'll get kind of a simplified way of what is wine, how is wine made? And you'll also get to taste about 10 to 11 different wines. And you'll see the way that we have our flights, will give you that story. It's like, this is white wine. This is how it will taste from Sauvignon Blanc. And this is how it will taste differently from Chardonnay. It's all in the grapes. And then, we'll go into how to properly store wine and how to properly have wine service. So, we'll give you a small bit of food and wine pairings as well. Another wine store that has classes as well is the Cantor in Eastern Market in Washington, D.C.
Are there any national or online opportunities that people can take advantage of? Are there any books you'd recommend that they can hop on Amazon, since, especially for people who don't live in the DC area or might not necessarily have the cash on hand to spend on an actual full class?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone has to get the Wine Bible. That's a great way to start. Catherine McNeil, I'm sorry if I can't get it right. But the Wine Bible is something that you absolutely have to have, because it's a giant book and you'll go through everything you need to know about wine. Wine Folly is a great place to follow, and they'll have the different tasting components of varietals and things of what you'll expect with skin contacts and coloring.
Okay, and so if I buy the Wine Bible, what do I absolutely need to look at? What chapters do I need to engage in? What are give me 5 major points about wine that will take me from like intimidated to relatively comfortable the next time I go out to dinner?
I think food and wine pairing. Look at that chapter because a lot of us get intimidated. It's like, well, I can't drink red wine with fish. You can. So it's like a lot of things. And I know you being a chef, it's like a lot of do's and don'ts, but you can really try it all as long as you open up your palate to it. I personally enjoyed the chapter about champagne and sparkling wine. There was a note in there that she mentioned how taking a bite out of like a snowball. I know for you in Arizona, I'm not sure if you ever experienced snow, but if eat some snow, that's kind of the same way that it'll taste if you're drinking champagne, because it's like some type of nuttiness, like a cone factor, and it's chilled that I was like, oh my God, I can relate to this a lot. And she also goes down like a little bit of the history of how wine is made and where it came from, because a long time ago, it wasn't safe to drink water. So people made wine. I think it's the cavemen, actually. They just picked some grapes, forgot about it, put it in the back of their cave, and came back. It was like, oh, well, let's drink this. And that's how wine was made.
Well, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey or in South Jersey outside of Philadelphia. So I definitely am accustomed to snow. And Arizona has so many climates that if you drive 3 hours north from Phoenix, you definitely can go skiing. So yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah. Just eat some snow and that champagne.
So for someone who is a complete and total novice, they are going out to dinner on Saturday with a group of friends. They pick a restaurant and someone drops the wine list in front of them based on, the Wine Bible, based on your own expertise. What are the top 5 things they can take away from the Wine Bible and from yourself that will allow them to pick a wine that they will likely love?
I think a lot of people enjoy, if you're looking for something sweet and something white wine, try a Riesling. Some people say that as a dessert wine, but I think it's also an intro to wine outside of drinking Moscato. Start with some Riesling. If you want to go to red, something that's not full body, something I guess vulgar, go with a Malbec. That's one of my favorites. Or a Pinot Noir. They're lighter skinned grapes, and it's not going to be overwhelming with like that bitterness that I feel like a lot of people frown on. California is always a good go-to. Everyone kind of starts with California wines. If you want to be bold, go for Bordeaux or Burgundy. I think it was that 4, 5 for a dessert wine. I love Sauternes. That's kind of what I'm drinking now. It's like a sweet dessert wine. It's like literally liquid gold and candied apricot. So good.
Now, are there a couple of rules I need to use when I'm picking a wine? Is there anything that I can use in my knowledge base that will help me kind of consistently pick new wines, especially if I am, I'm a eater and I've decided I want to be a bit more adventurous, and it's kind of my personal goal to kind of expand my palate a little bit and challenge my palate a little bit. What rules about picking wine can I use in order to choose a wine, even just sitting in a huge wine store?
Okay. Number 1 rule, fried chicken and champagne. You got to try it. You got your fatty oiliness of the fried chicken. Then you get your sweetness of, it'll compensate with the champagne and the sugar level, because it's barely any sugar actually yet. Take that back. There are no rules to wine. I feel like everyone should just go out and experience and try different things together. Like I had stuffed mushrooms and a Torin, no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, and Burgundy Pinot Noir together. It's so good. You just have to try it and be open-minded. And that's what I kind of want for us more. Don't be ruled by the rules. Just get out there and try some wine and take a bite out of something, and either you like it together or you don't. And even if you don't like it, try again. Just because you have one thing doesn't mean that all of the wines are going to be the same way.
Right. So if I'm standing in What's the one that's a really big one? Just any kind of large wine superstore. And I'm like, I need to pick a bottle of wine. I'm going to go I'm getting a gift for a friend for a housewarming. What are things I need to look at when it comes to the bottle? Do I need to look at region? Do I need to look at terroir? Do I need to look at the style of grape or you know what I mean? Like what can because, there's so many people who are they're not necessarily going to invest a ton of time, like Googling and trying to buy a book and that kind of thing, but they're intrigued and they want to add wine to their collection of adult drinks in their house. They want to be able to feel a little less intimidated if they're out to dinner with their boss or with new friends. And they're kind of looking at this wine list going, I see a year, I see a country, I see a style. I have no idea what I'm reading. What can they do, in your opinion, to kind of help eliminate some of the mystery of a wine list or the mystery of a bottle of wine?
Okay, don't focus too much on the year. Unless you know everything that goes on in every region, state, California, this weather, this year. Don't focus too much on the vintage. You want to focus more so on the region because you have a lot of climate and that will matter in how the grape is grown. So if it's going to be like a hot climate in Spain, just think you're going to get something big, juicy, vibrant. Focus more on the region, and then you can go from the grape. Not so much the vintage, don't worry about, because you don't know everything. It will happen every year. You know what I mean? And it's not exactly like they'll try to jack up the price just because it's supposedly, vintage or it's older. Focus more on the region and the grape varietal.
Right. So how about we'll do a really quick wine association moment here. So I'll give you the name of a wine that that are common for people, and just give me a quick flavor profile. Everything from the type of fruit that's commonly used, the varietal, as well as possibly if something's full bodied or dry. So if someone goes in and they pick up a bottle of Pinot Noir, what can they expect?
A bottle of Pinot Noir is going to be a light body red, and you're going to get notes of strawberries in it. Some people say mushrooms, it'll get turned away from it, but it's not going to be something heavy. It's easy to pair because it's such a light-skinned grape, and it's a little delicate. But it's not going to be so bold as like a cab.
All right. And so that was my next one. So what can people expect from a Cabernet?
I call Cabernets BBWs. You have big bull wine. So it's going to be higher in alcohol. So you can expect, nothing less than about 13% alcohol. And then the wine, even the color is going to be darker because it takes a little bit longer to grow. And it's like you really want the grape to grow and kind of bulge. And when you taste it, you're going to get your strawberries, raspberries, black currant, maybe a little hint of pepper. It's just going to be so much going on that it's in a good way. That's oh my God, it's like a party in my mouth because you're all swishing around in your palate. Really get your teeth red with Cabernets. I love Cabernets.
Okay, and let's look at Merlot.
Mellow Merlots. It's not going to be as high in alcohol. It's literally right in the middle part, medium mellow Merlot. Your flavor profile there, you'll get a little raspberry. It's going to be juicy and fruity. You might get a hint of mint in it. Just beautiful. Those three are actually to me, beautiful red wines. If you get a Pinot Burgundy, it's gorgeous. A big cab from Bordeaux, Merlot from, really, you can kind of get it from anywhere almost. Those are kind of my top three reds.
All right. Now, Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio. It's kind of a flavor profile. Not my favorite. High acid. As soon as you take a little sip, it's oh my gosh, you feel the acidity going down the back of your jaw. Because Italian wine, especially Pinot Grigios, it's going to be high acid, high acidity, high alcohol, all those things going on there with it.
All right.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Pinot usually pairs really well with something fatty that has a really full mouthfeel if you're going to pair it with something to eat. And usually with something that has a bigger, bolder flavor. Acidity is fantastic for balancing flavors on the palate. So it's really a great one to actually use in salad dressings and also to cook with because of the acidity as well. Let's see. And finally, Chardonnay.
Oh, Chardonnay is like the Beyonce of wines. Everybody loves it. It's so buttery. It's kind of like caramel buttery popcorn for me. Chardonnay is my least favorite of white wine. I mean, I've just learned to love a Merceau, but and it's yeah, that's Chardonnay for me.
All right. So my last question for you is essentially give me your top 5 bourbons and your top 5 wines.
All right. Top 5 bourbon. 1792 small batch. Maker's Mark. Willet. Let's see, that's 3. Knob Creek Rye. Let's see. Jim Beam just came out with an aged black barrel that I just recently had. That was pretty tasty. Blanton's. Oh, that's good too. And let's go with Rowan's Creek. I think that's 5 for bourbons. Wine, Gloria Ferrera, Brut Rosé, Clinker Brick, Zinfandel. Any Argentinian Malbec is good for me. Frank Family, Cabernet Sauvignon, and a Vino Verde or Albarino.
Okay. All right. Now, what are you currently drinking? I know you mentioned a dessert wine.
Yes. Right now I'm drinking a Sauterne with La Flor de Your 2014 Sauterne. It's my dessert wine for the night.
All right. And where are the best places to go in your area for just a drink after work, for dinner that has a fantastic wine list, or a couple of restaurant locations that have Black Soms on the payroll? So what do people need to go? Where do people need to go in your area to make sure that we are seen and heard, and that people are spending their dollars where there is some diversity of staff as well as some representation?
Absolutely. You want to go to the Gibson on 14th and U, or you want to go to Homestead Bar, and that's on Georgia Avenue.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all, you heard it here first. Make sure you hit those places up. Is there anything specific they should be ordering from the menu?
Our bartenders they're so crafty. Just let them know what you prefer and they'll whip up anything for you. I always love a good Manhattan or a vodka martini with a lemon twist.
All right. Anything to eat we need to think about?
Oh my gosh. It's summertime. Get barbecue and rosé and have a good time. You'll thank me later. Or if you want to do fried chicken and champagne, you're welcome.
Yeah, yep. I definitely made a strong push for that a couple of interviews ago to make sure we are, it's been one of the coolest trends in culinary to pop up for sure is champagne and fried chicken.
Yeah, it's so good. I think we just had National Fried Chicken Day maybe 2 days ago or so. It was like really close to 4th of July.
And so I'm sure people still are like, but how and why? I'm like, don't worry about the mysteries. I could explain to you why this works, but don't worry about it. It ruins the moment.
Exactly. Because once you take a bite, you're like, oh my God.
I'm like, this makes all the sense in the world. So what are your kind of goals in the next year? How can we as a community be supporting the growth of your brand?
Check on me because I'm going through the diploma program next. That takes at least 2 years. So there's 6 different units, and there's a lot of theory and written exams when it comes to the viticulture and winemaking process. So just check on me, support me on that. Send me random small motivational quotes. That's kind of like what I'm finishing for the rest of the year. Just, get that diploma program going. Continue on with my wine apparel line. And I do have some cork art available too, but that's like my side hobby. It's like bored on a rainy day, I'm going to design some cork art.
Okay. And so where can we find all of follow you, find you, and shout you out on all the multiple platforms that are available?
So I have a Facebook page that's Bubbles and Bourbon. And then I also have an Instagram, Bubbles_in_bourbon on Instagram. And that's where you can find me. The website is coming. It takes a little time. You got to find the right graphic design people. But for right now, you can find me on social media for Facebook and Instagram.
All right. Well, thank you so much for popping in here for an hour tonight. I appreciate just being able to get to know you a bit better and letting you talk to the people. And so we can all just learn more about you and learn how we can, again, best support you and Bubbles and Bourbon, just so we can see more like yourself out in the world doing this work, because we are definitely out here consuming it. I think it's time that the rest of the planet understands that we're here. We might not have a ton of TV time and a ton of media time, and we might not even be talking about it as much as we should ourselves, but it's happening and out here. Yeah. I just, if you're doing this type of work, talk about it, share it. Yeah. Don't be shy about it. Sometimes you have to just kind of keep hitting the wall until it falls down, because they do. And definitely if there's a platform that features our faces and the spaces that we're growing into, definitely support those. I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a community is Black people supporting other Black people. It's built into what I call the slave programming, is to not support one another and to be suspicious of each other. And in order to overcome that, we have to just put our faith and trust in each other and respect the work that we're doing, and, not sit out here and ask for discounts and coupons and can you help me out and all that other stuff, but to really treat each other the way we would treat any other race of people that we spend money with. And
you got to feed the dream.
And so for us, it's just like, our responsibility is to produce high quality work, high quality content that adds value, not just to our community, but to the world, and to hold ourselves to the highest standard. And then, as a community, our responsibility is to support those people doing that work. And so I definitely look forward to seeing where Bubbles and Bourbon grows to. And I will definitely make sure that we are talking about you and talking about your events and just making sure that you stay at the front of everybody's mind. So I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely been a blast. And anytime, just give me a call. I'm here.
All right. Well, thank you again, and you have a good night.
Thank you for listening in on this week's conversation with Marcia. I am excited that you have joined our community of thoughtful, ambitious, and informed listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. Listen to the Afros and Knives podcast on iTunes, Anchor, Google Podcast, Spotify, and anywhere else you podcast. New episodes are available every Tuesday. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Get the official Season 1 t-shirt in the Afros and Knives store and join the celebration. And don't forget to sign up to become an insider at afrosandknives.com and get the official podcast calendar, updates on new designs, and exclusive content. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again next week.